Hi, I'm Harry from Fog of War, and I am a Wargamer, 2020 edition. Hi, I'm Harry from Fog of War, and I am a Wargamer, 2020. I first did this back when my channel Fog of War was very new, back in 2016. So it's going to be interesting to do it again and to have a look at what's changed with my channel over that time. I decided to film it outside today because it's one of the first very nice days we've had after a very long, cold and wet winter. So yeah, hopefully the sun's going to start to come back. I understand it's been very hot in other places of the world, but it's been very cold here. The first question is, what got you into wargaming? And when I was young, wargames looked like this. You bought them in boxes, they had counters and hex maps and these sorts of things. But I grew up in a small country town in the Midwest of Western Australia, and I had never heard of wargaming until I came down to Perth to go to university. And I discovered a fantastic store in Perth called Simulations, which had games of all sorts. War games, D&D, just things I had never even dreamed of. And it was a real eye-opener for me, and I instantly became a wargamer. I also learnt to play D&D, and I've recently taken that back up again, but I am a historical wargamer at heart. I tend to stick with World War II, so I've never done Napoleonics, I've never done American Civil War, any of those sorts of things. Mainly tanks and aeroplanes for me. So Fog of War, my channel, is based very much around Flames of War and Team Yankee. Certainly Team Yankee has been the big focus for the last couple of years, just because that's a big part of my interest. I'm very interested in that period of history, having lived through the Cold War and been part of the confusion about what's a T-72, what's a T-64, how can you tell the difference. Those were all things that we were very concerned with at the actual time. So I got into playing wargames. That was a lot of, we played Air Superiority, which was a air-to-air combat game, but I played plenty of Arab-Israeli Wars, World War II, modern tanks, all of that kind of, those war games, we played all of those. We also played a lot of stuff like Battletech and Harpoon. So Battletech, you can stomp around in great big robots, that was great. And that was where I first started to paint miniatures. I'd never painted miniatures before that. I recently looked up my Battletech miniatures, and you can see a great deal of difference from the first very sad looking miniature I painted through to the later clan stuff that I had. So you could see at that point that I had grown in my painting abilities. But my channel doesn't do a lot of painting. I'm not a great painter, I'm a good enough painter for the tabletop. I also came to the hobby through modelling. I was an avid plastic modeller, building mostly 72nd scale aircraft, but the occasional tank and things like that. We also played Harpoon, which was modern naval combat. We absolutely loved Harpoon. Yeah, all the missiles flying through the air and submarines, all of that. I recently bought the new Harpoon 5 rules, and I've been reading through those again. Either I was a lot smarter back then, or they are just a very hard set of rules. There's certainly, on the side of simulation versus gameplay, they're very much a simulation. But we found out how to do it once, so I imagine I'll do it again. I've got a whole bunch of modern ship miniatures making their way to me from GHQ, so I'll get to paint those up and we can play some more Harpoon, which would be great. After playing wargames for quite a while, I got wrapped up in my career, and I ended up not playing any wargames again for a long time. And it was 25 years before I took it up again, and I got into Flames of War and started building my first British armoured Squadron 4 Flames of War. And at that stage, there weren't very many YouTube channels about Flames of War. And that leads into the second one of what got you started in YouTube. I had already made a couple of YouTube videos. I'd been playing a video game called Strike Fighters, and I'd been very much enjoying that, and I made a couple of videos about Strike Fighters. And once I got invested in Flames of War, it just seemed natural to come and make some videos about that. And out of that, Fog of War, my channel, was born. Fog of War really came about because I didn't have anybody to play with, but making videos for the community was a way that I could still engage with the hobby and still do things with miniature wargaming, buy kits, review them, do rules videos, those sorts of things, and still participate without actually being able to play very often. So that was where Fog of War came from. So the next part is, where do you see your channel in 5 years? That's interesting because I went back and looked at my 2016 video, and my channel had only been up for a couple of months at that stage, and I really didn't know where it was going to go. Now, 4 years later, I have a look. The channel has become mainly product reviews, so I do an awful lot of reviews of kits that are released mainly by Battlefront, but I've also done stuff for Plastic Soldier Company and Zvezda. So where do I see my channel in 5 years? Interestingly enough, Fog of War is winding down. I'm posting a lot less content than I used to, and there's several reasons for that. Firstly, I retired, and I thought I would have a lot more time to spend on videos once I retired, and that's not the case. I used to make videos to escape from work, so yeah, fitting videos in amongst gardening and doing stuff around the house, and yeah, there's just not the same motivation that there used to be. It's also partly economic. Now that I'm retired, I don't make the sort of money that I used to, and my wife lost her job pretty soon after I retired, so that's made things financially pretty straightened for us. And one of the goals I had for my channel was to build a relationship with manufacturers, and that just hasn't really panned out. I've never been able to make a decent contact with Zvezda in Russia. I've reached out to them on a number of occasions, but there's just, I can't make any headway with that. Plastic Soldier Company, Will at Plastic Soldier Company is a great bloke, and he sent me a few kits for review, but Plastic Soldier Company have gotten out of 15mm and definitely out of 15mm modern. They've done some stuff for World War II, but Plastic Soldier Company has moved on to other things. They're running a lot of Kickstarters and publishing games, and they've moved away from some of the hard plastic wargaming stuff that they did. And Battlefront, I've made several runs at Battlefront, but the last kit they sent me for review was months and months and months ago. And I don't blame them. There's a lot of Flames of War and Team Yankee channels out there now. When I first started, there weren't that many. Now there's a lot, and they have to choose who to support. And my channel is small. I'm just looking at breaking about 3,000 subscribers. So I have a loyal following, and I'm very grateful that people want to come and look at my videos, but it is a small channel in a niche market, and Battlefront just have other priorities. So yeah, they're not sending me kits for review, so anything I do review is coming out of my own pocket. And that means if I want to review a broad range of stuff, I end up buying kits for games or kits for armies I'll never field. So I end up with a bunch of stuff where I build one out of a box of 5. The tanks game that Gale Force 9 had was a great way to get singles to review. So they had a single Battlefront tank from either the World War II Flames of War range or for Team Yankee, packed in a blister, and you could buy those. And they were great, but they've discontinued that game and they've now moved on to World of Tanks. Their World of Tanks game now has pre-built miniatures. So again, I can't then buy singles for review. You can buy singles from Battlefront, but buying them in US dollars and having them shipped to Australia, by the time you do the conversion and they get here, they're out of date. I will still make Fog of War videos, but it will very much, I think, in the future be of things I want. Now, I say that, and yet I heard a whisper that they're going to do a plastic BRDM for the Soviets in Team Yankee, and I have to have some of those. And that's sad. I'm a wargamer, but I'm also a plastic addict, I'm afraid. As for being a wargamer, I was a little bit different than a lot of people, so I've never played Warhammer 40,000. I was actually running a game store in Perth called Tactics when 40k was first released, and I remember making some of the original plastic rat-faced Space Marines. And they were great, I loved them, but I was just never tempted to actually play the game. So, I've never played 40k, I just tend to be a historical wargamer. So the outlook for my channel sounds fairly disappointing, but it's not meant to be that way. Fog of War will still exist, and I'll still do reviews. It will just tend to be more on kits that I've bought for myself. I won't be buying kits that I'm not going to field, or for armies that I'm not going to use. But Fog of War will still be there, and hopefully all my subscribers will still enjoy the content that I do make. Now, one of the other questions was, what advice would you give to someone who's getting started with a YouTube channel? And everyone's advice is just do it. And that is exactly the right advice. If you have an idea, film your games or review a product or do whatever it is you want to do. I, over the years, have spent a reasonable amount on kit with getting decent microphones and proper tripod stands, and but I still shoot everything on an iPhone, and I started my channel with a broken iPhone that somebody gave me. Wasn't even an iPhone I had. I cast around and asked some people who's got a dead iPhone sitting in a cupboard somewhere, and somebody did, with a cracked screen. Still great for videos, wouldn't use it as a phone. And that's what I started my channel with, so you can do the same. And try and find out what your niche is going to be. I wasn't sure what my channel was going to be, and I've done a few rules videos and a few listic building videos. I've not done many painting videos because that's not my strength. There's lots of other people out there who do them better than me. But what I did find out I was good at was explaining the history and doing product reviews. So that's where my channel grew to. And if you can find your niche, then that's where your channel will go, and you will fill a need for somebody. There will be people out there who will want to view your content. And that's been great. Part of having a YouTube channel has been me connecting out to various people. Joe from the Acceptable Casualties, All Miniatures Great and Small, all of those guys. So yeah, my advice is find something that you like and make a video that you would like to watch. So make the sort of content that you would like to watch, and I think you'll be surprised that there'll be other people out there who'll be wanting to watch it as well. Anyway, I've been Harry from Fog of War, and I Am A Wargamer 2020. Hopefully, I'm still doing this when I Am A Wargamer 2024. So I'll see you then. Bye. I really hope I pushed record on that. Otherwise I'm going to look very, very stupid.